What's up guys, Miss Water, aka Lightwater, coming at you with another video. Today we are doing the Shaman, Resto Shaman to be precise. What we're doing is we're going to talk about the beta because I got access. Yay! It's been a pretty fun, eventful couple days. I'm trying to play the healers as much as possible, but all that really means is me having to do the same Covenant quest over and over, setting up weak auras, setting up voodoo, and very little gameplay. But I have probably done at least 2 or 3 dungeons on every healer. It's not really enough to determine a full feel for them quite yet, but it's not bad. And so I'll give you my first initial opinions. I'm gonna start with Resto Shaman. I wanted to get this video out before I forget because they were the first class I played, and I'm gonna be completely honest, I couldn't wait to get to the next class. Which is probably heartbreaking for some of you Shaman fans, but I'm going to start with the legendaries, and I think you'll maybe start to figure out why. So here's where you craft the legendaries, right? The Shaman doesn't really have any good options, at least not for 5 mans. Now understand, my opinion is Shaman's performance in 5 mans, okay? Which definitely means my opinion is going to be very skewed. But first legendary, you get 20 seconds extra lust and 10% more haste when you're bloodlusted. This is probably pretty solid in a raid, but almost when you use lust in 5 mans, it's like never during a good moment. It's usually just beginning of a boss, which that's when the boss does no damage. So either way, it's okay. It'd probably be a lot better in raid. Next one's element. Your earth elemental has permanent earthquake. Doesn't really matter for healers. Next one is casting riptide has a 5% chance to activate Ascendance for 6 seconds. I did test this. It does do the Ascendance heal, and there is some weird ripple effect where the Ascendance heal copies itself a little bit, and then that copies the copy. So it's a decent heal when it does proc. Something along the lines of like 7.5k, which to put that in perspective, that's about a third of my health. So not a bad heal. I'm not sure if that's to everybody. I think it's split equally, so that would be the total heal. Yeah. Or healing all. Or, I don't know. But anyways, that was a decent one. But again, it's a proc, right? Which is not very good. It's a very low chance for a proc. It's only 5%. So the chance that this happens is unfortunately 1 in 2 minutes. So 6 seconds of Ascendance every 2 minutes isn't exactly like game changing, but it was still the highest theoretical performance increase even for like a raid, but it's just not really that impressive. Next up, casting chain heal makes your chain lightning instant cast. Casting chain lightning makes your next chain heal instant cast. So what this means is theoretically you can go, once you get it started, if you keep casting just those spells, they'll both be instant. This sounds a lot better than it is. And I know a lot of people in my chat were like, oh, it's super cool, that's OP. But then when you start really looking into the numbers of it, you realize just how not OP it is. One chain lightning costs 200 mana, which doesn't seem like much, but you're spending mana to do AoE damage, which is great and all, but that's not really your role, right? So you can't use this single target. It's not going to really do that much damage. So the idea is that you're using this on packs, right? But then the type of healing you're doing is only AoE healing, right? So this is used in a situation where 1, you want to be doing AoE damage, and 2, you want to be doing AoE healing. So that already kind of, I don't know, that only really represents like 25% of your playtime in a way, right? But most of the time, that's just not how the world works, right? It'll be single target damage that you need, or AoE damage at random. It depends on the packs, how much your tank is pulling. And then here's the thing, right? If it is a situation where you'd want to be doing AoE damage, there's probably a lot of mobs. If there's a lot of mobs, it means your tank's going to be taking a lot of damage. That means that chain healing is maybe not necessarily going to be the right play, right? Also, chain heal costs a lot of mana. Like a lot. And so to keep this going and not cast your more efficient spells, which would break the chain, well, it wouldn't break the chain, but it would put it on pause. I don't know, it's just not, there's no throughput gain here. The only thing that it does is it acts as haste, but it just speeds up your casting, right? It doesn't make your cast more powerful, it just allows you to do them a little bit faster. And here's the thing, right? when you get down to the numbers, if your goal was just to push Chain Heal as much as possible, then it would be faster to just cast Chain Heal, because Chain Heal's cast for me is 2.5, right? It would be 2 globals, which would be 1.45, or however the math works out, right? Let's say I had 0 haste, so Chain Heal's cast time is 2.5 seconds. That would mean I would have to waste 2 globals, each at 1.5 seconds, totaling for 3 seconds to get 1 Chain Heal, versus when I could just cast a Chain Heal for only 2.5 seconds, right? Also, the other combo costs 200 more mana because I would have to Chain Lightning. So it's a lose-lose if the goal is just trying to heal. What is it good for? Mobility, not having to stop and cast. There's only one situation when this legendary is good, where your tank is pulling the dungeon non-stop and nobody gets a chance to stand still and cast. That's pretty much it. Also, simultaneously, the healing has to be AoE. It's like so niche, it's unreal. If it gave like something else, like some kind of passive or reduces the mana cost, something stacks up, that would be cool, right? Maybe like it would be interesting if these were like the only spells that you cast and it like made each one of them better or something. Like a 1% stacking bonus or like a 2% up to like a cap of like 10. I don't really know. Something. Jonat's Natural Focus still doesn't have numbers on it. Probably one of our best hopes as far as like actually good legendary. They're really gonna have to figure out what they want this to be. Maybe they'll make it 5%, maybe they'll make it 10%. I don't know. It's gonna be fairly strong either way. I pretty much thought about this for a little bit. By the way, it makes your Healing Wave or Healing Surge increase your next Chain Heal, right? So stacking up to 5 times probably is my guess. That's what the previous legendary was. If I had to guess, it'll probably be 5 or 10%. Either way, what's going to happen with this legendary, either it's so strong, you'll always just Healing Wave into Chain Heal, or it's weak, but it's still really good at 5 stacks, so it'll just be 5 Healing Waves into a Chain Heal. Almost never will you cast Healing Surge to get the Chain Heal unless you're in like a cooldown moment or something. Healing Surge got nerfed for Shaman, so it's really even worse than it was before. And I guess I can kind of go into that now. So on paper, obviously there's tidal waves to think about, but on paper, Healing Surge costs 4,600 mana, so 4.6k, but it only does 2.4k healing. So you spend almost double the mana cost of how much healing you're doing. Okay, now let's look at its counterpart, its competition, which would be Healing Wave. In Restoration, Healing Wave costs 2.8k mana, but does 3.2. So it does like, you know, I don't know, almost 50%, or not 50%, but it does a good chunk more, right? It does like 20% more healing than it costs mana. That's a huge discrepancy between the two, right? So even when you factor in the Tidal Wave's passive, right? And the reason this is relevant is because it only speeds up Healing Wave, so it's not actually a throughput increase. Like, you're not getting more healing for the mana you spend. Even when you factor in the 40% crit chance, which is basically like 40% more healing, Healing Surge is still way less healing efficient. And honestly, doesn't even really do that much more healing, right? Also, it's crit, it's just a chance to crit, so it's not reliable, right? Like, that's what's crazy. This is 3,200 healing, right? Healing Surge is 2,400 healing. So you're really preying on that crit to get 4,800 healing, when you could have gotten the guaranteed 3,200, right? Like, it's, like, you get what I'm kind of saying here? Alright, anyways, moving on. So, Spirit Walker's Tidal Totem. After using Mana-Tide Totem, the cast time of your Healing Wave and your Chain Heal is reduced by 50%, and the mana cost is reduced by 100% for 10 seconds. So, for 10 seconds, you essentially get 50% faster Healing Wave or Chain Heal cast, and they're free. So, assuming the situation is Chain Heal-esque, you always want to try to Chain Heal. But if I guess there's really only one person damaged, then you would want to Healing Wave. I did the math, and if there's 2 targets who are damaged, then it's better to Chain Heal. This is a pretty solid legendary, but the real problem with it is its real value is obviously going to be in raid. Because you want to use this opportunity to get off like, quite frankly, 10 chain heals, right? Because the thing is, it reduces their mana cost, but it's still gonna give you resurgence mana back from when they crit, right? So you really just want to spam super hard because you're only gaining mana. And chain heal is gonna do quite a bit of healing and would have cost you quite a bit of healing or quite a bit of mana normally, right? Sorry, the layout of where they put these spells is kind of confusing. So here's chain heal, right? If you get 10 cast off in this period of time, that's 60,000 mana you saved. There's a good chance that you know, you have like a 25% critical strike chance on this eventually later on when you're raid geared. So every chain heal on average is going to give 1 proc of resurgence, so that would be 10 procs. That's about 2.5% of your mana back. I guess it's not really as much as I had thought, but still kind of relevant. Anyways, that's another great raiding legendary. So I don't know if you're seeing a trend, but a lot of these legendaries don't really work in 5-man, or they don't really shake things up that much. Jonats might be the best hope, honestly, because you don't really chain heal often, but when you do, you kind of want it to be big. But even then, that's kind of a weird one, right? Alright, moving on. Primal Tide Core. Every 4 casts a Riptide also applies Riptide to another friendly target near your Riptide target. This would be really good if it was 3, not 4. And you're probably wondering, like, why 3? Riptide has a 6-second cooldown and lasts 18 seconds. So if you were to cast 3, then at least you'd have 4 up on everybody in the group, right? But at 4 cast, it just doesn't feel that good, right? I don't know. It just doesn't really feel that like, this is only a 25% buff to Riptide spamming, if you will. And I guess it's alright. I don't know if I have any previous segments of any healing I did. Don't, sadly. But I would imagine Riptide did a fair amount of my healing, so this might be the better legendary. But again, this is really lackluster because you don't experience this until after 24 seconds of non-stop spamming exactly on the cooldown when it comes up, right? And so it's hardly worth thinking about, but it's kind of one of those legendaries that'll just help. Also, I haven't unfortunately tested it. Maybe that's perhaps something I should have done. Where is the current legend? I guess I can test it while we talk. So let's go back here. And so that leaves us this last one, right? Earth Shield, his healing is increased by 300%, so aka 4 times. If your Earth Shield target is below 50%. So it only works if your Earth Shield target is below 50%, right? And Healing Wave adds a stack to Earth Shield to your target, which is kind of good, but again, that's not really that big of a deal. Earth Shield doesn't really cost that much mana. Okay, hang on. So here's what I wanted to check. I don't know if it would be. Alright, well, I haven't really been able to confirm it, but one thing that would be worth noting is if this 4th Riptide does the initial healing of Riptide. My guess is it doesn't. Quite a bit of the healing of Riptide is done in the initial amount. Also, does this Riptide give back tidal waves? Does it give resurgence? Right? So that's something that I probably should have checked out, but there's just only so much testing you can do, right? But yeah, I guess I could have done that. Anyways. Oh, jeez. Game audio. I should turn that off. It's fucking crazy. Anyways. On to the greater point. So Shaman hasn't really changed. Unfortunately. You get Mana Tide Totem now, which is cool. It's alright. It's nothing crazy, honestly. Just 100% more mana regeneration. 8 seconds every 3 minutes. What else did we get? I think they buffed the initial heal of Ascendance. So Ascendance does feel pretty good when you hit it. And also I think it lasts 15 seconds, which I think it was only like 12 before. They nerfed High Tide a little bit. High Tide used to increase the healing by 20%. Now it's only 10. We have Surge of Earth. I didn't really get to play around with it because I thought it was garbage. And I still think it is garbage. I think it sounds really good at first, right? 2000 mana, 20-second cooldown. Consume 3 charges of Earth Shield to heal up to 6 allies near Earth Shield target, or we're just gonna say basically 1,000, because it's 339 times 3. It's basically you're gonna heal 6 people for 1,000. So a 6k heal, or in a 5 mana it's a 5k heal. Problem with this is you spent 2,000 mana to do it. You also got rid of 3 charges of Earth Shield, and so we know that's 1,200 healing, because Earth Shield heals for 400 a pop. Also, I don't think this works with the legendary. That increases how much your Earth Shield heals for. Right? So if you've got this little problem going on here, it would be interesting if Surge of Earth didn't have a cooldown. I think it would be much more fascinating. Yeah, I think it would just be infinitely more interesting, because then you could Surge of Earth, cast on your target a little bit with healing waves, and then Surge of Earth whenever you wanted to. And it'd be this really cool way of building up charges and then burning them, you know? And then maybe this legendary should add 2 instead of 1. Wherever it's at. Yeah. Like, why only add a charge? Why only add 1 stack of Earth Shield to your target? Why not add like 3? It's not really that impressive. And also, what's with the conditional thing of 50% health or lower? My tanks almost never went below 50% health, and if they did, they just died right away. One thing I noticed about healing so far in Shadowlands is that the AoE healing feels pretty good, but tank healing feels awful. Tanks were spiking randomly. It was really dependent on the quality of tank that you had and the type of tank you had, right? So certain tanks just didn't really dip. Like, the only tank that was fun to heal was a monk. But most tanks I've been healing were Death Knights and Demon Hunters, and they do so much healing, and they're so spiky that you just don't really feel good healing them. And then when their Death Strike's down, when their Consumed Souls are down, and you don't have immediate healing to save them, they actually just die. Like, they just died. And if you didn't have a cooldown to save them, they just fell over. And so it feels so bad as a Resto Shaman, because you have no ability to pick up a target quickly, and you feel like you have absolutely no control over the survivability of the tank. Hands down, Resto Shaman, I've pretty much tested all the specs. Resto Shaman is the worst single target healer in the game, and that's saying something. Because there's some runner-ups, you know, like Holy Paladin has very little single target healing. Holy Priest struggles a little bit. Disc, obviously. But yet, Resto Shaman takes the retard cake for just having absolutely no way to save them. It's unreal. Like, if you don't have a sentence, they're dead. If you didn't have up a Spirit Link totem, they're dead. That's just how it feels. Like, it's like if you didn't have some kind of button, you're not healing the situation. Just let's get rid of that idea right away. Like, even with the oh yeah, I guess we could talk about conduits a little bit. So let's see. I guess I could look up. Not very prepared for this, sorry. Okay. So here's this little cool tool. It's called the Soulbind Calculator. We will select Shaman, and we'll just go ahead and look through some of the take these before we can see what they do. These are the conduits, right? Now these say ranks. I hope there's not ranks, but we're not going to get into that. So the conduits are like little things that you can put in. You typically only get from like 1 to 3 potency conduits. And the effects can vary depending on the class. But for the most part, they're only like a couple % increase here or there. Alright, so Swirling Currents. When you use Healing Stream Totem, it increases the effect of your next 3 healing surges or healing waves or riptide spells by 20%. It's like not even noticeable. Honestly, it's sad. But like you'd think 20% would matter, but when the spell hardly does anything in the first place and it takes so long to cast, it's like whatever. And you're not really thinking about it. You're not really thinking, oh, this healing stream really buffed my next spell. It's like it just like, I don't know, it just didn't really, it wasn't noticeable. It's an okay buff, but it's really nothing to write home about, and this might only go with like 1 or 2%, right? Shake the Foundations. This is some DPS thing. okay, Chain Heal has a 40% chance to jump to an additional ally. Completely useless on a 5-man because it's already hitting 4 targets, and a 40% chance to get the lowest Chain Heal bounce because remember, it's just an additional ally. So what this means is that it's the 5th bounce, right? After all the diminishing return is, because remember, Chain Heal does like a certain amount, and then what is it, minus 30, minus 40% per bounce. So by the time it gets all the way down to that 5th bounce, it's a little baby heal, right? And it's not even a 100% chance for that. It's a 40% chance. So again, it's just a chance. Like, chances are not good. They don't feel good as healers. Let's see. Heavy rainfall using Healing Tide totem increases the healing of your healing rain by 150% for 20 seconds. I'm just not quite sure. Like, this is a raiding talent by far, right? Like, who's going to Healing Tide in a 5-man and be like, yeah, for 20 seconds, these healing rains, they're going to tick a little bit harder. And by a little bit, I mean 150%, but still, no one's really standing in the healing rain. You're getting 3 people tops. Like, you're not getting the whole group in it. And honestly, the purpose of Healing Rain in a 5-man, in my opinion, is really just a vehicle to use Deluge, to make sure everybody has Deluge, you know? You Riptide the range, the melee on Deluge, everyone's getting 20% increased healing. That's kind of how I look at it. And it's really only on your Healing Wave, Healing Surge, and Chain Heal. So not all your other additional healing, which kind of blows too. That's one thing I've noticed with Shaman is there's a lot of like particular details in a lot of their talents and things. Like this only affects Healing Wave or Healing Surge. This only affects Healing Wave, Healing Surge, and Chain Heal. A lot of like healing comes from like other sources in Shadowlands so far, just kind of like how it was in BFA. So a lot of this stuff is just not working properly. But anyways, I digress. Let's look at the rest of the conduits. Okay. We were here. So DPS conduit, DPS conduit. Earth Shield increases your healing done to the target by additional 5%. I think this is one of the ones I was using. Because Earth Shield gives your target plus 10% healing, and so I thought another 5% would be really good. It seems like it's additive, not multiplicative, which is unfortunate. Vesper Term is 100% more efficient against the target nearest to it. This is good. It's not like the best, but it's a decent increase to the person. I think it's like a 20% increase to essentially how powerful your Vesper Totem is. Assuming that it's hitting the right person, right? This could just be healing some random dippy melee DPS. And that's about it for throughput conduits. So yeah, none of those really stuck out to me as being OP. So here's the current ones I'm running. This is Endurance Conduit. Reincarnation's cooldown is reduced by 3 minutes, and when you reincarnate, you automatically get Astral Shift. Ghost Wolf increases your movement speed by an additional 10%. Earth Shield increases your healing done to the target by an additional 5%. And Bloodlust gives me 4 seconds of Spirit Walker's Grace, which is so useless, but what I was running on a decent conduits. So, yeah, the reason I went Kalia, by the way, and this is something you'll find out on all the healers right now, everyone's going Kalia because she does so much extra healing between these 2 passives. It's out of control. This is a 5% HPS increase, and depending on the group, this can be anywhere from 5 to like 15% of your healing. So this Soulbind is so powerful that it literally overpowers every Covenant and Soulbind choice. You always go this chick, which means you're always Bastion as a healer right now in the beta. Wow, this video is already super long, and I feel like I've said nothing. This is insane. Okay. I'm going to stop here and just say my overall feelings. The class feels very weak in 5-mans. It downright feels unplayable. I feel like I have no control whether or not the tank dies. I'm just stuck casting the world's slowest heal. And I realize I'm speaking as from somebody who has 5% haste, but shamans don't typically build haste because it does nothing for the class, with the exception of a little bit more healing rain healing and a little bit more tick healing on Riptide. That's it. But still, even with that, it was bad. I even had Flash Flood in some runs, and it still felt like the cast time was forever. There felt like nothing I could do outside of my cooldowns. If I didn't have Ascendance, and if I didn't have Spirit Link Totem, tank died. Just straight up. Didn't matter if they had Earth Shield, if they were getting the 10% plus the 5% healing. Vesper Totem would sometimes delay deaths because, you know, Vesper Totem really felt like a nice, good healing down. But yeah, I don't know. Like, the healing waves were hitting decently. Like, they felt powerful and impactful, especially when the target was low, because I could get some mastery healing. But it just felt like it was so slow. And if I used Healing Surge, it just felt like I was going to go right? Like, I was having some serious mana issues already. Chain Heal felt odd to use, and it was very slow and clunky in a 5-man. And so, besides just sort of keeping up 3 Riptides at all times, trying to make sure that healing rain was down, I just sort of felt like I was panicked all the time. Like, that's generally how I felt. Like, I felt like every pool required me to have like a Spirit Link totem, and maybe I just had some crazy tanks. I only did about a couple runs with Shaman, and I definitely need to do more. But this is just first impressions, and I'm comparing this, guys. I know it's not fair, but I'm comparing it to like Resto Druid or Holy Priest, where my single target healing was easily double or triple what the Shaman's is. Honestly, straight up. So that's just the real issue here, is that tanks are spiked fast and they need to be top fast, and that's not a really good place that you want to have in the start of an expansion. I am not a fan of that. Tanks' health should be going down slow. They should have very little impact on whether or not their health bar goes up. Okay, Blizzard. They should have a lot of impact on how much their health bar goes down, but no impact, in my opinion, unless you're a blood DK, of how your health bar goes up. I think that's bullshit. So right now, as it stands, like half the tanks do almost as much healing. It did as much healing as my Resto Shaman, and that was a really, really bad feeling. Really, really bad. And I just did not feel good. So my thought process is, I think they're still going to get brought to raid, Resto Shamans, but you kind of feel like a second-class healer. You feel like you're just being brought yet again for what you bring to the table, not necessarily, but not your HBS, right? You know, you're going to bring stuff like Wind Rush Totem and Ancestral Protection Totem and Spirit Link Totem, right? Like stuff like that. Because you can Ankh, right? Like, it's gonna be like utility stuff and not like throughput, and then you're probably gonna handle like 1 or 2 moments of burst healing with probably like cooldowns, I imagine, right? As opposed to going like throughput. Like, who knows? Maybe you're gonna be that one lucky shaman who gets to just stand there and blast high tide chain heals 24/7, be able to take Earth and Wall Totem. But it just doesn't feel like that right now. Man, I don't really. I'm trying not to be a little sourpuss about this class, but nothing is interesting for me. None of the legendaries really shook it up. The class literally saw almost no changes. The only good thing about Shaman, and it's actually not good, it's a nerf, but I still appreciate it, is that Blizzard took out the secret healer passive. So finally, the numbers that you see are actually the numbers that you will see again. So proper tooltip numbers, proper everything. There's no hidden healer class bonus, but this means that if there is a trinket that does healing, it will randomly do 40% less for shamans, because everybody has like a secret plus 40% buff still in the game. All 5 of the other healing specs have a secret healer passive that buffs all healing stuff they do by like 40%. Shamans had their removed, and then they had their spells increased to compensate, but that healer passive transcended spells. It affected all things in the game. And I believe it still affects your soul binds, right? Now you see where the issue comes in, is that when everybody is forced to go this Kalia bitch because she's like a 15% HBS increase, the shaman, for no reason other than just being a shaman, randomly does 40% less healing with her. So yeah, that's a thing. Well, actually, I think because this is based off percent maximum HP, maybe this part isn't affected. I'm not sure. It would take a lot of numbers to try to figure all this out. But this is why I believe all healer passives should be abolished from the game, so I don't have to do this kind of stuff. It's incredibly difficult to theorycraft when randomly healers have different scaling hidden healer passives. I don't know. It's just insane. And you're probably wondering, why does Blizzard have these? Well, they're very, very easy tuning knobs because they affect the entire class in its entirety. So it's like the master knob, because they know when they turn that knob up 3%, it will truly increase all of that character's healing by 3%, right? If I only increased Resto Druid spells by 3%, it might only be like a 2% because maybe like a third of their healing is coming from other sources, right? You never know. I'm rambling at this point, but yeah, the class feels like it's missing a lot, and I think honestly it's in desperate need of just a revamp, like a rework completely. I'm serious. Like Resto Shaman feels terrible. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't like the playstyle. So, but if you've liked Resto Shaman in the past, you're gonna love it moving forward. And I know Resto Shaman players are typically fairly old school and didn't really want their shit to change too much. So I won't. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. If you like that, that's cool. That's fine. But I won't be playing the class honestly till it gets changed. I just absolutely despise it. So, oh, and you got Water Shield, but all of your mana costs were increased. And so it's kind of this illusion where you think you're getting more mana regeneration, but you're not. And the 86 mana per 5 only comes out to being about 2%, 2.5% more maximum mana for the fight. So the only way you can make Water Shield good is by intentionally getting melee hit, which is kind of cheesy. To give you back 2% mana. So if you can get melee hit once in a raid fight, it's like almost the same amount of mana that you would gain if you had naturally regened it. So the 86 mana per 5. I would like to see more integration with Water Shield into the passives, perhaps. I think it would be much more interesting if your Water Shield had charges, maybe. I think it would be more interesting if your Water Shield came with charges and then it itself costs a mana cost. And then maybe like you had spells that had a chance to like use one of the orbs or charges on it. Just some kind of integration with it. It so clearly looks like it was just added to appease class fantasy-esque people. And I am glad to see it, but it's tuned in a way to where it doesn't matter. So it's window dressing. Like it's 2.6% or 2.5%. Like, yeah, here's your Water Shield. Buff all the spells by 2.5%. There we go. Here you go. Here's your Water Shield. Like, I don't know who's keeping the balance of Resto Shaman so tight, but this class hasn't done good HBS in a long time. And it only does good HBS when it can use its mastery. And this isn't looking like a mastery expansion so far, I'm gonna be honest. But we'll see. I could be wrong. Anyways, this video is too long. Goodbye.